Welcome to today's Engage Customer webinar, sponsored by Five9 and Connect. I'm Nicholas Bryce, CEO of Sol Corporations and today's guest editor. I'm delighted to be joined today by Tim North, who's Head of Contact Center Go-to-Market at Connect, Thomas John, Vice President of Channels at Five9, Dr. Damien Copeland, Director of Professional Services at Connect, and Greg Callanan, Vice President of IBA Sales at Five9. So today we're going to be discussing how can AI enhance your customer experience and to see how effective today's virtual agents can be. Certainly a much discussed topic at the moment, so I'm looking forward to delving further into this. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Doing great. Thank you very much for having us.
Lovely to have you here. Good to have you here. Nice to see you. Great. Well, we're very excited to have you here. Before I hand over to you, I wanted to remind our audience at home to ask your questions today using the Ask a Question button on your screens. And we'll aim to answer all the questions. But of course, if we can't, we can assure you that any questions we don't get around to answering are going to be answered after the event. So let's use the time. I'm now going to hand straight over to you, Tim.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd just like to talk about some of the experiences that I've had recently. Listening to an IVR saying, sorry, the call center's closed is something I've never heard before. And certainly that has been happening. And also IVR saying, go to our website. I mean, yeah, they always try and encourage you to go to the website, but not to say you need to go to the website to have any way of communicating with us or finding an answer to your question. It was a huge shock for us all. And it's definitely fueled interest from our customers now about IVAs and AI, and it's taken us, I think, our market ahead years in our customers' thinking. So it's really exciting to have the guys here today to be able to talk to them and question them on what's going on in the marketplace, and to get their opinions and what's happening. So Thomas, I'd love to hear what you've got to say on it.
Thanks, Tim. And it certainly is an exciting time to be in this marketplace. And I'm delighted to have Greg, who will be talking through this, who leads our IVA here at Five9. And, you know, what's making this really exciting for me is generational versus technological inflection points. And it's colliding to create the perfect storm in our world or the market. These two transformational events happening simultaneously, which is contributing to the adoption and growth of AI technologies globally. And I believe no one here will disagree when I say corporate Europe can no longer afford to hire 24/7, 365 days a week or a year rather, to take calls and handle agents who can handle that, the multitude of requests that are coming in a tsunami-like fashion. And that's no longer possible. And that's happening across businesses daily. So if the pandemic, and I think everyone on this panel will agree, has taught us one thing. It has taught that information is changing too quickly for human beings to keep up with the latest data. And I think the AI engine is exactly that. As the latest data compiled and ready to disseminate what's critical. The second challenge, and I think it's good for us to discuss this here today, and we'll cover it, is the change of the age demographics and how people want to consume their information and when. So my children are post-millennials, and they want to speak to human beings about as much as want to be whacked in the head and told to go to bed early. So listening to my choice of music. So exactly the same. They want to do text. They want to do SMS, chatbot. And these two events colliding is what's creating an explosion in our market and accelerating it in the world, Tim.
Okay, brilliant. So in summary, what you're saying is the technology for our time. I think is probably what you've just said there. And it's interesting because I've seen it with customers where, you know, they've just got to go digital. It's not a case of, you know, we had a strategy of thinking about doing this and we're going to go to cloud in the next couple of years, and then we'll look at more digital interaction. And overnight we had clients. We had quite a number of lucky clients that had gone to cloud, and literally the agents logged off, went home, and logged back on again at home. And it was that easy from a technology point of view. And it is that straightforward once you've got that cloud architecture. But what was different is digital. and digital was a driver. Some businesses said you've got to interact with us on the digital way. We can't deal with it any other way. We don't have the call center technology to do so. So it drove to digital. So it brought, and we're now on that balance between voice and digital. And you know, it's from a thought point of view, it's definitely even keel. Whereas before it was always 85% voice, etc. So I'm interested to about IVAs, which seem to bring in both. So can you give me your view? What is IVA, Greg and Thomas?
Yeah,
certainly.
And just before Greg jumps in, for me, you know, you hit the nail on the head there. Our generation, and I'm probably aging us, Tim, we're happy to see R2D2 on Hollywood right out there as a vision and a dream. This demographic see Siri as a table stakes. It's basics. They interact with voice and they're expecting it in their contact center and in the CX space. So it's a completely different demographic. And Greg, sorry, I cut in. You go ahead.
That's quite all right. Tim, to your point, an IVA, think of an IVA like a human agent. It's a technology that allows you to disseminate information, as Thomas was saying, to the caller or the person on the chatbot in the media that they want. So if I'm more comfortable in text, I can use the chatbot. I can go back and forth. The AI engine will look up the information and give the proper responses. If that information, like during COVID, when we were getting out COVID messages for the medical community and those things, we were constantly having hourly, daily updates on that information. And it was just impossible for the human agents to keep up. But a digital agent, and that's really what this is a move to the digital workforce. This is a capability that allows you via chat, via voice, to disseminate information out to your customers, help them to process different applications or things that they want to do. And what's really nice, to Thomas's point, is they can do it at the time of day that they want to do it. They can do it using the media that they want to do it. And when needed, there is always an available agent to be able to do that. But at its purest sense, an IVA is someone that can do something about 50% of what a human agent can do. And what does that allow you to do on the other side? It lets that human being be more free to have a better user experience with that end customer. So they're doing perhaps really critical factors, while the IVA is perhaps handling some of the more mundane tasks. Something like PCI payments. We've all made payments on the credit card and done those things. You know, that this can completely be taken off. We did this for Telstra in Australia, where they had 40 live human beings taking PCI payments. We replaced all 40. Their customers were actually happy because they could then make their payment any time of the day, as only during the business hours. So it's things like that that an IVA could do. And quite frankly, the pandemic, if you think of an IVA, it is a resource that is available to you when human resources are somewhat scarce. We just described 2020. We just described the entire year of the pandemic, year plus. So that's really what it can help business with. And it's an explosive market right now because there are more and more technologies coming on board to assist. So that AI engine can be, if I have a live agent on with you, I can have an AI bot in the background looking up information about what the customer is asking for. If I'm dealing with a live IVA agent who's processing the entire call, it has access to what that customer did last. It can ask questions. We can do things as simple as book a hotel room, you know, so I can come in and I can see, Tim, that you traveled last week to Manchester. I can actually ask, the system will ask you, Tim, are you going back to Manchester? Yes, I am. Would you like to stay in the same facility? Yes, I would. Or no, I need to stay downtown this time because I have some meetings. So it's going to be smart enough to handle transactions like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was interesting. You made me smile, Thomas, when you talk about age and going back in time. But allow me the moment, if you would, pull up a sandbag and swing the light. I do actually remember when IBM sold its speech recognition tools, an engine to Nuance back in 2006 or 2009, somewhere around that time anyway. But, you know, Nuance obviously really focused on that speech market, but market of one wasn't necessarily the best thing for anybody. But we come out of that now, and more recently, you've got Google have massive investments in there. You've got Amazon, has obviously got the experience because we're talking to their technology all the time at home, asking it to put on the radio, etc. It's listening to us. You've got IBM coming back in, with Watson, and Microsoft has its own technology, but then it's gone and bought Nuance, or buying Nuance, I should say, in the market. So the big question is, guys, where do you fit in?
So, Tim, to answer that directly, if you go back to the Nuance days, and Nuance made a wonderful technology, but it was deployable only by customer. So every single interaction was a complete development effort that could take 6 to 12 months. It was very expensive, and only the high end of the market could really approach that. When you take in the applications and the technologies that you just talked about, from Google to Watson to Microsoft to Lex on Amazon, those type capabilities, we are an abstraction layer that sits on top of those technologies. And if I need to invoke, let's say, an IBM Watson, they're very good in the financial sector for an application, I can do that. But if I need to invoke Google for other applications, I can do that in the same transaction with a single customer. And what I've done is I've built an applications library on top of those capabilities so that I can deploy different standard applications for customers very, very quickly. So what used to take 6 to 12 months now takes 4 to 6 weeks, and I can have those applications up. And the key to that is we built a layer where the customer has a layer on top for a user experience where they can build this. And it's drag and drop. There is no code. You're not rebuilding something each time. I can drag, drop, I can copy, I can do all sorts of things to speed up and increase the capabilities of the system. But you just mentioned some of the top technology companies in the world, and we're leveraging those technologies. And my comment to folks is, would you rather have one group of technologists working on your solution, or would you rather have 7,000 PhDs at Google, which is what they have on their AI group, right? So they got 7,000 people working on this. Google also makes the system get better by the more transactions it has, the faster the system learns. Because again, think of an IVA like a human agent. It's going to learn in your business. And the more transactions that it gets, it learns faster. So in the first 30 days when you hire a human being, you hope that they get smarter and better inside your business. The same happens with an IVA. It gets smarter. Only I have the assistance of Google that lets me get smarter very, very fast because it gets millions and millions and millions of transactions a day. And that's kind of the big change. We designed Studio with the concept of bringing this capability to the masses. It wasn't for just large enterprise. It was now for everybody. Small businesses, I mean, we have companies with 5, 7 people that are using this technology daily. And it's become the cornerstone of their business because those 5 to 7 people have day jobs and they're really, really busy. So having an IVA that can do a lot of the tasks that they used to is invaluable to them.
I'm going to jump in there. You mentioned Google far too many times. I'm gonna have to. I think we need to give some time to Amazon and Nuance. And what an introduction to Damien when you talk about people that've got experience of actually those larger projects with Nuance in deploying this technology, and certainly in the voice space. So Damien, thanks for joining us. We've been quiet on you at the moment, but I'm interested in your view of how things have changed from the days of Nuance and how the deployments might be different if they are different these days.
Yeah, clearly they're different. I mean, I guess 20-25 years. Firstly, the on-premise deployments are pretty much at an end. You deploy once, you deploy in the cloud, and different large businesses are able to take advantage of what's already been done and what's out there. That's massive. Greg's already alluded to that. And the other thing is that, for a long, long time, we were talking about this panacea of omni-channel and opti-channel, the ability to start a journey on one channel and finish it on another. So you might be, you might be on a website, you're struggling to do what you need to do. You pick up the phone, you want to speak to somebody, your call's answered by an IVA that may be able to answer the questions, if you've got Watson on the back end. And if it can't, then an agent can pick up, continue and finish the and complete the problem that you've got. And it's a seamless way of working. And as I say, we've been talking about that for a long time, and it's only very recently that that's become reality.
Okay, brilliant. Greg, I'm actually going to push one back to you. Actually, what are the analysts saying? What's their view on this market?
So this is the technology itself, where voice technologies have been around for a while. The concept of this digital technology, this digital transformation, so that I can now utilize these systems over the media source that they want, i.e. I can use chat if I'm in the right demographic, right, Thomas? I can use chat and text and SMS, or I can use voice. And so DMG was the first analyst to really start covering this marketplace about 4 years ago. And 3 years ago, they handed out their first awards for best solution. And I'm honored to say that Studio was picked in the first 2 years. We're waiting on this year's results, but Studio has been picked in the first 2 years. But quite frankly, the other analysts have started to pick it up as well. Folks like Gartner are now going to add a magic quadrant about the technology. And so you'll be able to take a look at this. And really, the key to the solution for the end customer, and this is where it's really important, is they don't really care which technology, whether it's Lex or it's Watson or it's Google or all they care about is it solves the problem I need to solve today. And so having that abstraction layer that can bring to the fore any of those technologies in a particular application, it is the critical component. And then being able to interact between. So if I've come in and I've done a voice transaction with a live agent in the morning and I come back and the IVA answers, the IVA is going to say, Tim, you were in this morning at 10:05. Are you calling back about that, or are you calling about something new? And so it's going to know what you've done. It's going to handle you with a user experience that's friendly. And then it's going to give you the various options to solve your problems. And if it can't, it can either transfer you to a human agent if available, or if not, it can say, we will call you back in the morning with a live agent that can help you. And then it records and stores over for the live agent inside their desktop that they need to go do that. So it's those type capabilities that make it both a very, feature-rich functional capability, but at the same time, simple and an easy interaction with the customer so that they can conclude and do the business that they need to do with the technology.
Okay. So how would you summarize sort of cost versus value, the value proposition?
Well, this is where it's fun, because the return on investment for a business in this technology, think of an IVA, as I said, as a live human being. The difference is it costs approximately 10% of what it does for you to put a live human being in a seat. And it's available 365 days a year, 7/24, and it can take on new applications as quickly as you can think of them. And the training process, all of those things are just not what they used to be when you were trying to bring on live agents. And the other thing, quite frankly, for anyone who's owned a contact center, they will know that one of the most challenging tasks, if I have agents that are giving out information repetitively day in and day out, it becomes a boring, mundane scenario, and they are apt to leave that job, and then you have to retrain that person. With an IVA, we take all of those tasks off of those live agents. They're now handling more complex things and adding value to the customer experience. And at the same time, you're providing better service to your overall user community, because I can do it either via the IVA or via the live human being.
Interesting. You bring up some thoughts as you say that for me, and sort of pet topics that we talk to our customers about, and that is the balance between self-service and assisted service. And it's something that I've got experience of when you get a chatbot. My golf club's got a chatbot. Go on the website. The last thing
has it made you better?
Oh no, absolutely no. But it could do some real. It's not got really any AI, but it doesn't learn the fact that I hate it. and it comes on my mobile phone. I mean, you imagine you can't do anything else. So, just throwing them out there is just irritating.
Gives you someone to blame, Tim.
Sorry?
Gives you someone to blame.
It does actually. Yeah, that swings just like it's no chatbot's fault. It cost me a fortune in balls. Yeah, my topic really on this point is about. I don't see them as the automation. But people, we used to see years ago, oh, we want to automate this, automate that, and I'm just not seeing that. I'm not seeing it's the way forward. I'm seeing it more as the front end to the contact center to gather data, to qualify who's calling, why they're calling, and maybe even do some security and things like that. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
On how do you tie it together? So in terms of making that crossover.
Yeah, but Tim, you're talking about the front of the IVA. You also have solutions like Agent Assist that while the agent is on working with a customer, this system is in the background. The AI agent is listening to that transaction and then going out and getting information for the agent about the topic that your customer is asking about. So I'm bringing the latest information to that agent so that if something's changed on products, hey, Tim, we actually have a golf club that'll work for you. It'll go find that information out and present it back and say, hey, we can do this. So it's not just in terms of automating the entire process and, oh, we don't have to talk about our customers. We want to make that a richer experience for the customer. So we're going to pull data about their last transaction so we know what they've been doing. We're going to pull data about the current transaction as they ask questions, because we'll be able to go out and pull that for the agent that can then present it out to the customer. And we'll be able to encapsulate that and give you data analytics on the back end so that you understand what your customers are doing, where they're having challenges, so that you're better prepared to handle them in the next transaction.
Okay. So, I mean, the types of applications we're seeing is large regulated organizations. We're seeing ID&V, identification, verification is quite big. And some of those dialogues can be quite complex. I mean, I'm interested to get both yours and Damien's opinion on the deployments of those. And, how has this newer technology changed that approach? And has the TCO any better, etc.?
Damien, would you like to handle that one first?
Yeah, I'm going to come at it from, I guess, probably a slightly surprising angle by saying that the large majority of what my team does hasn't changed, and so I think it's really helpful to think about your customers or your users in terms of two things. They're humans with needs and aspirations, and they're a set of data. That hasn't changed. That's always been the case for people working in contact center and automation services. And it's vastly important that when you're servicing a customer's needs, you understand what those needs are. And so it's imperative that your IVA understands what it is that the user's saying when they tell you something. And so there's a certain amount of analysis and design that needs to be done up front. As Greg said, near real time and historical data is absolutely key to getting the person to the right place and servicing the needs that they have rather than the needs that you might think that they have. And so the integration piece, again, is absolutely key. But they're not new things. They've always been there. So I'm going to hand over to Greg now to tell me what has changed, I think.
Well, Damien, you mentioned the integration piece, and this is, I'll handle on the businesses side of the question. In Damien's point, one of the things that we've done differently than the older technologies is once we build, say, a Salesforce integration, I don't need to rebuild it for customer 2, customer 3, customer 4. All I need are your particular credentials for that application. So I build it once, And then all I need for the second customer is the credentials. Then I can pop the screens that are necessary. Only I've got an AI engine in the background that's going to take and get the most current information to pop the best information to handle that customer's transaction. And that's a big difference. You know, you train customer service agents on what's happening in your business and the latest things and all of that, but it's almost impossible to keep up. We're in the digital age where things are changing daily, and the capability of having somebody that can help your agent make the user experience for that end customer better. And in the case where it's the IVA, where that agent is doing the work, then you've got a system where that is always current. It's always got the latest information, and it's going to continuously be able to give that to the customer, regardless of the media they want to come in on. If they're on voice, it's on voice. If they're on SMS chat, we can do that. We can handle the different media sources, whether it's social media, whether it's the phone, an SMS, WhatsApp. So you've got all of those capabilities built into the system. The goal of the technology is not to overwhelm people with technology. It's actually to use it to make it easier for them to interact and get to the right places and the right information that they need to solve a problem, help them buy something, or move through the process to be able to do something with your company. And that's really the way it's been designed.
Okay, interesting. I actually think that one of the things that needs to be focused on is the impact on the customer service operation. Now, and how, you know, the technology side of things you're talking about, and to be quite frank with you, I think knowing you guys and knowing the technology, it doesn't challenge me at all. It's the technology is pretty straightforward, pretty straightforward stuff. Yeah, Damien, we've got some complex integration we have to do back-end systems sometimes. That's really important. Let's not underestimate it, but we know we can deal with that, deal it in lots of different ways. But the use of the technology and the training of the technology, to me, is a challenge that I think the audience need to focus on. And that is how it's like, you know, I remember when I was in knowledge bases 5-10 years ago, whenever it was, you know, the biggest challenge of that technology was getting people to train it and to manage it, because they'd set up a knowledge base and they'd never go and touch it. Now, AI hopefully will be learning from what's going on, but you've got to expose it. And how about the idea that actually the business uses the chatbot internally first on their operations? So what questions do they ask their supervisor? What questions are regularly asked? So before you unleash it on the customer, you're actually building your intelligence within your contact center. Is that feasible, that idea?
It's absolutely feasible. As a matter of fact, we built an onboard tuning engine to allow for just that. So as customers start to interact, we can capture that interaction. And if it's a voice interaction, we can get a record of a textual representation and the voice itself, do a comparative between the two. And then we can tune the engine to learn faster by what that internal user's been doing. So if an internal user comes into the system, they have an interaction, we take a look at it. Oh, when it gets to this word, and let's say it's a complex product or a medical term, those type things, we can then tweak the system very quickly and it learns faster. So not only does the AI engine learn by number of transactions, but I've got the added capability to tune it real time. And as I mentioned before, this has been designed, it has no code. This has been designed so that an employee inside your business can very, very easily do this. This isn't, I need somebody who writes in 12 different programs and can do all of these different capabilities. You might need that a little bit for some of the integrations, but you don't need that to run the day-to-day system. And that's the beauty of it. It's really been made simplistic with menus and copy functions and different capabilities built in to make it learn faster, to make it more productive, and to add value to the end customer's experience.
So I'm thinking, I'm visualizing here that you could almost blend the building of bots with their inbound work to say, you're quiet at the moment. Can you talk to us, talk to the system, or can you type and answer questions on the type of processes and questions you get answered in the call center? Is that a pipe dream? Am I starting to wake up?
Actually, we have a message out that says, "Hi, I'm new and I'm still learning. Would you help? We actually thought of that up front. The idea was, while the system's interacting, it says, I hope I've been helpful. I'm new. I learned on this call about this. And so the system actually recognizes and tells the caller that it's new and that it's learning. And then you can go on and have it have more interactions with that customer so that it learns faster. But the concept was not to shy away from the idea that it was now a digital workforce. The concept was, what is the value of that digital workforce? And is it so valuable that, yes, I want to do this? We talked at the outset about, you just can't afford to have 7x24, 365 staffing. So you need this digital automation workforce to help you. And so the smarter you can make it, the faster you can do it, and the more complete and robust the applications are, and the feature richness and the customer interaction. Those are the keys to success. And this is why Gartner thinks this will be a $10 billion business in the next 2 years. So it's just an exploding technology that is really needed on the business side, but it's also really wanted on the consumer side. We mentioned at the outset about, our kids don't want to deal with live human beings. They'd much rather interact textually. Thomas made the joke. Same's true of my kids. I'm old school. I'll talk to anybody. My kids don't want to talk to anybody. So it's not only what the businesses need, but it's also in many cases how the customer wants to interact, and that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, and I found the same thing. I've gone away much more from voice when I used to be voice. But one thing I do think is that you might be in a chat and great, but what about escalation to voice? Because voice is still needed. It's still needed, that human touch, that interaction, and the stuff that bots can't answer. Because there might be multiple things that person wants to talk about. How do we get from one to the other?
Seamlessly is the easiest way to phrase it. I can go from a digital transaction and say, I'd like to speak to an agent. And I type, I'd like to speak to an agent. What happens a little bit differently is when the agent comes on, they have what you just did. The screen's already been popped on their desktop. They're looking at what transaction just took place, what you were trying to accomplish, and perhaps the question that you asked that the bot wasn't able to handle. And that's why you're escalating to a live human being. So the person says to you, hey, Tim, I understand you want to buy a magic driver to help your golf game. Let me see what I can do for you. So it knows what you've been doing. It knows what you were trying to do. And then it can pick up from there. So those are the type capabilities that you want, because it improves your user's experience. I don't have to re-enter some, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I don't have to tell the person. The system has informed the live human being of what's going on, and you can just move, into a conversation with them and solve the problem.
My very last question, I appreciate, but probably for time, and I'll hand back over to Nick. What about security? Security is massively important. It's more and more important these days. So, but what I don't want to do is repeat something I've done in a chat on a voice call. So if I authenticate in the website, maybe because I've logged in and I've authenticated, or I authenticate in the chat, what happens when I escalate to a voice call? Do I have to authenticate?
No, that authentication stays with you throughout, because the different channels within the system, from chat to chatbot to live human being, all know what's happening across that landscape. When I've authenticated, that authentication stays with me from step 1 through step 2 through step 3. So when I get to the live agent, I don't have to go back in, and they don't have to ask me my password or my 4-digit code or any of those things. Because if you're like me, I can never remember the 4-digit code when I'm on to try to solve a problem. So that authentication will stay with you, and it will transfer along. And then, as I say, the other piece of this is, as a data repository, we'll store all of that information. So the next time you come in, we'll be even more helpful. We'll know what you have done historically, and we'll be able to interact with you in a better fashion. And that's really the experience that you want your customers to start to have.
Brilliant. Thank you. Nick, I should hand over back over to you.
Thanks very much, everyone. That's been a tremendous and exciting and interesting exploration. I'd like to pick up on a point that Paul Brocklehurst has made about his experience with so many awful chatbots. And I'd have to say that, you know, more often than not, I find the limits of a chatbot quite quickly when I'm interacting with them, and have on a few occasions gone round and round in circles several times with the same kind of heuristic with them. I mean, is it a fact that this is, you can't really avoid it, because as technology moves forward, our expectations move forward, we're always going to come up against what the VIA can't do, and therefore, are we going to judge it negatively? I mean, what's your recommendation for someone like Paul who's rolling out this kind of technology to get it right, to make sure that it doesn't become a poor moment of truth in his business, and that he can keep moving it forward fast enough in terms of its evolution?
Well, as I mentioned, Nick, on deployment, you do have that tuning engine. So I can analyze every single chat, every single voice call, every single text across the system. And I know exactly where the customer is starting to have a problem. I do those analytics, and I mean, you can capture at the word level of that, you know, I said X and the customer started to say Y. I had difficulty understanding it. And now I tune that and make it better. But on the flip side, I may also say, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble helping you, and I apologize for that. Let me get you to a live agent. So rather than you asking for it, it recognizes that it's not able to process that, and then it transfers you in a polite and friendly way rather than you becoming frustrated. And if you recognize when a customer drops off, then you invoke that prior to the point so that you're transferring ahead of the time where the customers become frustrated. It takes that frustration level off of them, improving their experience, and secondly, gets them to a live human being, which may be able to resolve their problem more quickly.
Good. I'd just add to that. I would be inclined to pick off a process that where you could just surface the bot in a certain page area that you knew the type, and you could narrow down the types of questions. I'd focus on the training of the bot around those questions and making sure it's absolutely linked up to real people, and even possibly actually have real people monitoring the bot as it's interacting with different customers, so you can see and jump in. That's the type of thing I would do, because it's clearly cautious approach is there. He's, you know, not convinced about the technology. Fair comment, and that's I would absolutely manage it with people.
Anybody else want to come in on that and reassure Paul and say, give him confidence to move ahead?
Yeah, I think there are two stages to this. I think the first is to make sure that when your bot or IVA or whatever technology you're using is released to the outside world, it's as good as it can be on day one. And tuning is absolutely key. If you don't love something in life, you can forget it. You can't keep it up to date. But that's the same with agents. It's the same with websites. It's the same with chatbots. You've got to keep them updated, because if you don't, they'll soon become out of date. The machine learning and the automated tuning is a game changer. It's absolutely fantastic. But I would say that you want somebody who knows what they're doing, who can make sure that once that on day one, when you're rolling out your application, you're not rolling out something for beta test. You're rolling out something that is performing as well as it possibly can on inception.
Brilliant. Siva Kumar has put something in here. We'll finish on this one. It's our last question. He's mentioned DAVA is good for technology and return on investment. How about survey result feedback on satisfaction level, talking to a DA compared to a real person? Does it influence the business in terms of it shifting to VA? That's his question.
First thing I'd say about that is it's really hard for the customer to appreciate the time to answer. So when you're asking a survey, the customer is probably going to be happy because if they're answered correctly and quickly, that's all they want. So if the agent answers them correctly and quickly, that's all they want. So you're going to find the results reasonably different. What you can't account for in that is the fact that on a voice in a real-time call center agent, you might have to wait 10 minutes, go through a number of IVR, say things, etc., before you get the answer. But on a chatbot, you might get it straight away. But you're not going to appreciate that but not so good experience because you've not had it, if that makes sense. So the results could be skewed.
Okay, anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can add in, Nick, just very quickly. I think, again, it depends. It's probably a great wrap-up, right, from bottom to top about the demographic. It depends on breaking down who it is you ask that. I think there is a generation out there, post-Gen Z, let's call them the millennial post-breed, who this is really critical, because this group of people are actually both the agent who are working in the contact center, but they're also the consumer. So it's really important that they're engaged. So what we're tackling today is the augmentation of that agent. They're not doing the mundane tasks anymore. If you ask a CIO today, and there are plenty today, hopefully on the call, they will tell you, to this day, the single biggest cost in a contact center is the agent, and it's the turnover of that agent. And if you're able to make those agents be involved in more of the, let's just say, exciting and tasks that a human is more inclined to be better at, then you're going to keep them longer. So that's number one. And from a consumer point of view, this generation is the most, how do I put it? They're not as loyal as we are. Okay, so, in terms of branding, if they're not getting the experience they're getting at said hotel brand A, they're going to try brand B. And the choice for the consumer makes it imperative that what we talked about today, the technology is rolled out in front for them to have the communication levels that they expect. So the question's a great one. I think it depends on who you ask. And if it's broken down, you'll see that one particular generation is standing out now with high expectations.
Yes, it's this idea of lifetime association with a brand persona and your own identity is history, I think. We move around much more easily now, and it's immediate. Terrific. A good theme to end on, and a good theme to remind us of just what a vital thing it is to have continuous improvement in the customer experience, and how digital technology drives this, and how we all need to be getting on board with this, because if we get left behind, then we'll find out the hard way, I think. So I'd like to thank everyone for your time and efforts today. Paul Brocklehurst has personally thanked you guys for the lovely suggestions that you've made. You've helped him a lot, which is marvelous, and I hope we've helped some other people who are tuned in to us today. It's been great to hear about the benefits that virtual agents can really have on a customer experience. The webinar experience recording will be shared shortly, so do watch out for the link in your inbox. But before we log off, I want to thank Five9 and Connect for sponsoring today's webinar and making it possible for you. Tim, Thomas, Damien and Greg for providing us with such engaging content, and you at home for joining us today. Take care, everyone, and have a lovely day.